You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's talk leans and locks with the Week 6 line presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. And this is a light week in the SEC. There's only 5 SEC games going on now that we're in the conference play. There's more teams obviously taking part. Ole Miss and LSU obviously have a bye week, and when you look at it, game day is going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for Alabama and freaking Vanderbilt, which is awesome. I'm excited about that game, especially after Ryan Williams said that Vanderbilt is going to be basically the bug and they're going to be the sledgehammer. So I am curious to see what that looks like and what Clark Lee can put together to deal with the Alabama offense. All I know is Alabama has trouble stopping the run, and Vandy's pretty good at scheming up the run. So we'll talk about that. All right, so let's look at the games this weekend. We have Kentucky at Georgia. It's at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on ABC. Georgia's favored with 21.5 points. Kentucky looked pretty sad, honestly. They did not look good against the South Carolina Gamecocks. They started out pretty well. They got up 7-0, and then they got up 10-7, and then there was basically a strip sack that the South Carolina defender recovered, and they ran it back for a touchdown, and at that point it was over. It was all she wrote. But Georgia's favored by 21.5 points. Georgia, their kryptonite this year seems to be throwing teams that throw the football. Tennessee was able to hit them on deep ball after deep ball. Alabama opened them up at home as well. Georgia won that game against Tennessee. They could have 2 losses if Tennessee had a field goal kicker. But Georgia lost the game against Alabama. It should be interesting, kind of a revenge game, but we'll see if Kentucky gives Georgia the problem that they seemingly always do. If you remember last year at this time, this weekend was Ole Miss and Kentucky, but last weekend would have been Kentucky and Georgia won the game 13-12 in Lexington. So we'll see exactly how it goes. We have Texas favored by 7.5 points on the road at Florida. We're on, I guess, Billy Napier fired watch at this point. The game is going to be on likely ESPN. It says ABC or ESPN, but it's likely going to be ESPN, and I'll talk about why in just a second. It's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see exactly how that goes for the Florida Gators. They have the talent to beat the Texas Longhorn. They do. They have the talent to completely put Arch Manning in hell. They have all of that ability to make that happen, but they have struggled this season. They played an elite defense. Remember, we just did against the LSU Tigers. DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions in that game. This is another elite defense. The only difference is this game is in the swamp, and if that place has a reason to get behind the Gators, look out. But if Texas scores first, they can keep them at arm's length, so we'll see what's happening there. The game that I think is going to be on ABC, it's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. It is Vanderbilt at Alabama. Bama is favored by 13.5 points. And after they took down the Georgia Bulldogs with a pretty steady amount of ease, that is interesting. But Vandy beat Alabama a year ago, and you deal with the factor of teams that play Georgia the next week. There's usually a little bit of a drop-off, a little bit of a sloppiness. Vandy having a number next to their name is a big deal because Kalen DeBoer, as head coach of Alabama, has struggled with unranked teams. So maybe that will help a little bit. But Alabama is favored by 13.5 points. Kent State is at Oklahoma, being quarterbacked by Michael Hawkins, the backup quarterback. Oklahoma's favored by 45.5 points. Kent State's hot garbage. Don't get me wrong. That's terrible. But that might be too many points. We'll see. I've seen Oklahoma run it up like the national debt calculator with the way they score points from time to time. But 45.5, that's a lot of points. That is a whole bunch of points. And finally, the Mississippi State at the Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M is favored by 12.5 points. It's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on the SEC network. Mississippi State almost. They had Tennessee, had them licked, honestly. A couple of defensive scores that they allowed is the reason that Tennessee won that game. That was a pretty big win by the Volunteers, but Mississippi State probably should have won that game. And looking at the film study this morning or this afternoon or whenever they're practicing, that probably was not a very good feeling, if we're going to be honest. But they're playing Texas A&M. And if you look at the history of Texas A&M, they have struggled mightily with the Mississippi schools, either Ole Miss or Mississippi State. So there could be a weirdness associated. And Jeff Lebby is good with coming up with game plans from time to time. We've all seen this as Ole Miss fans, that they can dial stuff up from time to time, especially after Texas A&M. They beat Notre Dame and they've beaten Auburn, although Auburn, we're pretty close to getting on Hugh Freeze fired watch if they drop game after game. So we'll see exactly how that looks. But Mississippi State, I like the Bulldogs, and I think this Egg Bowl coming up at the end of the year between State and Ole Miss is going to be a little bit of a war. I think there's 3 major games. If you look at Ole Miss's schedule, the 3 toughest games is at Georgia, number 1, at Norman, number 2, and then Starkville, number 3. The 3 remaining road games on Ole Miss's schedule. I know, big surprise that road games are going to be difficult. But with Trinidad Chambliss and the way they're playing, I mean, I think they can pull that out. Should be a lot of fun, and we'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. And another big moment on Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. He's leading the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On's local panel of experts, which I have been on at certain points this season. It is a college football preview that only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Also put it on my YouTube page on late Friday, so you can catch it there as well. So hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. And another big moment on Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. He's leading the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On's local panel of experts, which I have been on at certain points this season. It is a college football preview that only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Also put it on my YouTube page on late Friday, so you can catch it there as well. So hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.